Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my short presentation. My name is Thomas Schiffert. I come from the Austrian Kachelofenverband, called Teilstoff Association. I'm also Vice President of the European Kachelofen Association, VEUKO, and stakeholder in the eco-design process and the standardization in between CEN, the European Standards Committee. I want to point out some figures about emissions from local space heaters, which we normally call stoves. First of all, how is Austria heating? Of course, I come from Austria and therefore I have the main data from Austria, but I have also some European data. When you look at it, you can find that the main process for house heating is wood heating. So if you can see in the year 21-22, there are the energy consumptions from boilers and stoves for wood heating. And you can also see that from the year 2005 to the year 21, there's an important increase of use of biomass for wood heating. There's also some more energy from district heating from wood, which you can see in the very right column of every year. The only thing else that is increasing, of course, are heat pumps. When you look at it in the year 2005, there was nearly zero of energy from heat pumps, and you see in the year 21-22, it was about 10 petajoules compared to the 70 plus petajoules from boilers and stoves. You can still see that biomass is by far the most important energy source for room heating in Austria. When we come to stoves, I want to point out some figures of the importance of masonry stoves, Kachelofen and inside appliances and kitchen stoves in Austria. There are around 450,000 existing stoves in Austria. We have about 3.8 million households, and then you can see that in about 12, 13, 14% of the households there are wood burnings, masonry wood burning stoves. We build around 10,000 new stoves per year, and the combined installed power is 2 gigawatts or 2,000 megawatts. If you compare it to electricity supply, for example, it's 3 times more than all of the power plants from water in the river Danube in Austria. And Kachelofen and other massive or masonry stoves are still the most important biomass heating in Austria. Let's go to some data from Europe. There you can see the trend for emissions in Europe. There you can see that all of the emissions are going down through the years. So I always point out the air quality in Europe was never as good as it is now till the beginning of the industrialization of Europe. When you look at the light blue line, these are the particulate emissions 2.5, so the small particulates, and you also see there a decrease of about 20% from the year 2010 to the year 2018. And the newest data also show that it is furthermore decreasing. So the air was never as good as it is since industrialization. Of course, we can always get better, and that's why we are here for. When you look at the percentage distribution of particulate emissions in Austria, then you can see where the particulate emissions come from. Part comes from industry, part comes from the from the food production, part comes from mobility, and part comes, of course, from wood burning, which you can see about here. So we have in Austria about 26% of particulate emissions are carried out by wood burning and some smaller other things. But when you go into details, you can see that stoves are only about 4.5% of all of the particulate emissions in Austria. Where does the other percentage come from? The main producer of particulate emissions are old multi-fuel boilers, where you can maybe burn wood and coal and other stuff. And of course, these are very old technology, not optimized for one fuel. And they're about far more than half of the production of emissions comes out of these old appliances. When you look to stoves, you can see about 4.5%, and that's and when you look at boilers, it's about the same. So the main part comes from old multi-fuel boilers. How do we solve it that wood stoves are burning clean? When you go to masonry or local space heaters, or in this case in tiled stoves, Kachelofen, why is it new stoves burning clean? We've invested a lot in research and development. We produced optimized combustion chambers where especially the air inlet is optimized, and so the combustion can be very clean. For these tiled stoves, Kachelofen, one specialty is that every single stove is adapted to the existing chimney and the altitude. Even in Slovenia, you have parts at sea level and parts of the country that are higher. And of course, the density of the air is different, and therefore you need a slightly different stove. And all of this is indicated in this building of the stove. And there is an European calculation standard for these stoves based on this research. It is EN 15544, and this standard is in power since 2010 and was new release in 2023, so very up to date. And for example, in Austria, these stoves that are built according to this calculation and using those combustion chambers is awarded by the official environmental label of the Austrian Ministry of Environment. What is very important, and there I see many different numbers and many very old numbers, is emission factors. What is an emission factor? Emission factor is what is produced by an appliance in the field, so not on a test stand, but in the field, per energy unit. And therefore, it is megajoules, or it can be gigajoules or terajoules. So when you look at this, you can see that we have about 80 milligrams per megajoule for these tiled stoves. We have about 118 megajoules for average stove that you can buy. Still quite a good number. And I have seen a lot of very old numbers leading to totally unrealistic percentage distribution for stoves in, for example, in Hungary or Slovakia. and I've presented these data. This data is from the Austrian Environment Agency, which is run by the Ministry of Environment. So it's not data from us, from industry, or from economy. It's data from the ministry. So it's quite low. I've seen data about using data of 392 coming from a very old study in Denmark in the 1990s. So it is important, if you calculate emissions from stoves, that you use the right numbers, the right energy consumption, the right number of stoves, and the right emission factor. So how is it now possible to reduce these particulate emissions from stoves? There are some possibilities you can do. We have studies were carried out, for example, in Styria, close to Slovenia, that have shown that the particulate emissions can be reduced by 50% if the users are taught how to fire the stoves. Of course, dry natural wood, firing top down. There are many websites in different countries, also from the official side, that show how you fire the stove the right way. And for example, now the county of Styria has a truck that drives around the country showing the people how to fire the stoves the right way. Studies also show that emissions can be reduced by more than 50% by replacing old technologies stoves by new ones. So you don't have to change a wood stove to a pellet stove, have a wood stove, take a new wood stove, and so on, and you can reduce these emissions by 50%. And what would be the easiest and less costly solution would be try to get the worst 10% of the appliance out of the market. These are old multi-fuel boilers. So if you have funding or laws or something that get people to get rid of these old multi-fuel boilers appliances, you can do a very good job for the consumers and for the air quality. Thank you for your attention and have a nice discussion. Many greetings to Slovenia from Vienna.